It's Wolf, and it is finally time to talk about M.A.R.S. So if you guys remember, a couple months ago I made a video about the game Zombies, Monsters, Robots. The original version of that game was on Steam and a few other places. It's one of these games that was made by a developer and then various different publishers in different regions released it different ways with different names. Anyway, there was a version of it on Steam called Zombies, Monsters, Robots. It was not a super popular game, but it had some popularity. It was around for a while, but it eventually shut down. But there was definitely a fan base for it. It was also called Mercenary online in some areas also. I just know that because apparently it had a big following in the Philippines, I believe, as a whole bunch of people let me know in the comments of my last video. So if you're from the Philippines and you're watching this, make sure to say hello in the comments. So ZMR on Steam shut down, and so you couldn't play it on Steam anymore. But as it turned out, there was another version of ZMR that was pretty much the same, just in Spanish, that is hosted by Exceso 5, Exceso 5, which is a Latin American game service thing. I'm not really exactly sure. I didn't research it a lot, but they have various other games. Like they host some sort of RuneScape on their website also. So a Latin American like games distributor. And so I made a video about how to pretty much unpack that game and play it because the download on the website's a little weird. I don't know if it's like region based or whatever. But anyway, in that video I showed how to do that and got like 5,000 or 6,000 views I think last time I checked. So people still wanted to play ZMR. Well, a few weeks I think after that video came out, Suba Games, who are a game publisher and also like another game distributor, went into the comments of that video and kind of told everybody like, hey, there's a new version of ZMR coming out. It's called M.A.R.S. And so that sounds pretty cool. And finally, the beta for M.A.R.S. is here. So I just want to mention also, Suba Games has been like really friendly to me about all of this stuff. So they sent me some emails, but they were not like at all overbearing about it. So they sent me a whole ton of review codes. Well, not review codes, but just like beta passes for this beta. So I have like 4 to give away. So I'm going to put them throughout this video and then also throughout the eventual first 15 that's going to come out for this video. But this video is just kind of like first impressions and stuff over some general gameplay. But the beta keys, they look like this. And yes, the one that you see on your screen right now is a real one. So somebody can go ahead and have that one and play the beta. And then there will be another one somewhere hidden in this video. It'll probably just like pop up for a second or two on the screen. And you know, just the very general hidden message thing that people do in videos. There'll be another one in this video. And then there'll be 2 in the first 15. And I think that's all of the codes that I have for giveaway. But anyway, in order to use that code though, you don't enter in on Steam. The beta is not through Steam, it's through Suba Games' own website, which is something that we are definitely going to have to talk about because the way that they have this set up to download the beta is not very great. But before we talk about that, I think it's kind of important to say, so is M.A.R.S. actually like ZMR? And yes, it is exactly like ZMR, which is really good because I was a little bit concerned about like what Suba Games was actually going to be putting out with M.A.R.S. I was kind of like, is it going to actually be like ZMR or is it just going to be like this game that's really different? I don't know. But no, the game is almost exactly the same as ZMR, which is really good, but also kind of like if you've played ZMR, there's not really a whole ton new stuff to explore, but the gameplay is the same. There's definitely some differences, like the UI and stuff like that is different. The heads-up display in the gameplay is different. There's some different character models that I've seen. It looks like there's a couple of new enemies. In particular, in this gameplay at one point, something that I don't remember ever seeing in ZMR was penguins. At one point in this gameplay, there was like a bonus round where there was all these penguins, and I just kind of like opened fire right away because ZMR normally everything other than other players is an enemy, but they don't actually seem to have been doing any damage, so I'm not sure if I was supposed to do that because like eventually I stopped like firing at them and then they just kind of like wandered over to where my character was and didn't appear to be doing any damage. So anyway, but yeah, so that's just one of the examples of various new things that I noticed. So there's definitely some new stuff. I didn't notice any wholly new levels, but there could be. I'm not completely sure. I didn't get the chance to explore the game a ton yet. In terms of unchanged stuff, I mean, it's really similar to ZMR in a lot of ways, which honestly I think is kind of a good thing because I think ZMR had, like, the audience who liked ZMR for being ZMR, so not changing a ton I think is a really good idea. And then also another thing I was a little bit concerned about compared to the Exceso 5 version of ZMR with Suba Games' M.A.R.S. Exceso 5 is really like generous with their mission payouts and with their like number of revives and levels and stuff in their version of ZMR, and I was a little bit worried that Suba Games might not be the same way, and at least in this beta so far they are being the same way. So the mission payouts are pretty generous. generous, so you're not going to have to grind for like crazy amounts of time to unlock new stuff. And the revive number, it's not as high as it is in Itzesso Cinco's version of ZMR, but in this level I played, there was like 60 revives, which should be ample number of revives for a whole team playing the mission. So overall, like gameplay wise, I think that it's exactly what Suba Games promised, which is good. It's literally a new version of ZMR, which is good, because I think that even though it's not super different from the Itzesso Cinco version of ZMR, the fact that that game is only in Spanish and might possibly be region locked to some extent, because I ran into some people that said something about they had trouble playing it in certain areas, but it didn't seem like it was region locked when I played around with it. But that just also could be, maybe it's like region locked to the Americas in general and not just South America. Anyway, it's good that M.A.R.S now is coming out, and it's good that it'll be on Steam also, because that'll allow a lot more people to play it again easily without having to download, like go through the whole process like I had to go through with Itzesso Cinco's ZMR. I will say, to some extent, I don't think that there's really going to be a huge appeal to new players unless they really like the style of game, because like again, it didn't really change a lot. But if you liked the original ZMR, you'll almost definitely like this, because it's so similar. As for negative things though, the way that this beta is set up right now is like really not great. The way to actually get your hands on the beta definitely needs some work, and it'll be less of a problem with the full game, because the full game will be released through Steam and everything. But yeah, Suba Games, you guys definitely could improve this area for future beta tests or anything. So currently, in order to download the beta, you have to, and it's simpler than Itzesso Cinco's ZMR, I will say that much, but it's still kind of a pain. You have to have a Suba Games account, which isn't really a huge deal, because I think you need to have a Suba Games account anyway for the full version of M.A.R.S when it eventually comes out. But you need to have a Suba Games account, and then you need to get a beta key. Then you enter in your beta key, and then you download the Suba Games launcher. But the weird thing about the Suba Games launcher is that it's like it only has ZMR on, or not ZMR, it only has M.A.R.S on it. So that's kind of strange. I don't understand why they put together this whole launcher for just one game. But the other thing that's really odd about it is that when you download it, you get like terms and agreements for the program WT Fast, which is What the Fast, which is like a networking program for video games. And the thing that I don't get about that is that What the Fast is not required in order to play any of the games here. So I don't understand why they have those terms and agreements for it in there, unless somehow Suba Games is using What the Fast on their end of things. But that's just really strange, because like What the Fast is a wholly separate program and everything that is completely unrelated to Suba Games, and I kind of wonder if it was like a mistake for them to put that in there, because it just seems very odd that those are a set of terms and agreements you have to agree to. So then once you do finally get the launcher installed and everything, you have to, well, here's one thing about the Suba Games launcher that's really annoying. It launches on startup of your computer after you download it, and there doesn't appear to be a way to change that. But luckily there is a little bit of a workaround that I found out that I'll get into later. That is one of the most annoying things. And like, I knew that the second that I started my computer up after the original download of it, and it started at launch up, I was like, yeah, or launched at startup, I was like, yeah, there's no, like, this is not going to stay installed on my computer, because it's just slowed down startup so much for me, because my computer is pretty slow on startup anyway. But in addition to that, so once you get the launcher downloaded, you download the game through the launcher. But the thing is that the launcher downloads the game separately. In other words, once you download M.A.R.S through the launcher, you can launch M.A.R.S on its own without going through the launcher. So the complaints that I just had about how the Suba Games launcher launches at startup on your computer, after you download M.A.R.S through the launcher, you can just delete the launcher completely and still play M.A.R.S on your own, which I would heavily suggest doing, because the launcher is just weird, to be honest. Like, Suba Games is like a legitimate company and everything, because you know, you can look them up and they have actual like stuff. They're not just some like weird small company that popped out of nowhere. I mean, they host other games and stuff, so that definitely brings like the shadiness factor down. But just the fact that it has What the Fast's terms and agreements in there, that it launches on startup, and that the game downloads pretty much separately from it anyway, just seems kind of odd. And I think in the future, when it comes out on Steam, most people probably aren't going to use the launcher anyway, so I think it would just be better for them to just wholly get rid of the launcher in this process, because it's just weird and it just kind of slows stuff down. So I would definitely say Suba Games, just get rid of the launcher and just have the direct download to the game. Anyway, just to kind of recap that, if you go to download the game, make a Suba Games account, enter your code in, download the launcher, download M.A.R.S, delete the launcher, and then you can still play M.A.R.S on its own, as long as you just launch it right from its own application. So it seems like kind of a pain, but I think that most of that will pretty much be disregardable anyway once the game comes out fully on Steam. This is just like a beta thing, but I think it was just definitely a thing I wanted to bring up. But I mean, as for the game itself, I mean, they kind of have been marketing it as a ZMR replacement, and that is exactly what it is. So I think the game is pretty good. I liked ZMR, so I like M.A.R.S. So I think if you liked ZMR, you will, as I said, almost certainly like M.A.R.S. It is the same game. So yeah, if you liked ZMR, I would suggest checking it out. Like I said, there's beta codes dispersed throughout this video and the first 15 that'll eventually come out of it. I don't know how many videos of this I'm gonna get around to making, because I just super busy with a ton of other stuff right now, but I definitely know there's at least a first 15 coming out of it, so there will be that. Oh, and then one other thing I wanted to note real quick about the game that I almost forgot to mention. There's still some work to be done in the settings area. For one, the game there's no option to run this game at 1080p, which is really, really strange, because ZMR was able to run at 1080p. There's also no option to run this game at full screen. When you start the game up, it starts in windowed mode, and you can go into the settings and uncheck windowed mode, but then it just stays in a window, just a slightly bigger window. So that's really odd. I think a full screen option and 1080p would definitely be helpful, especially because they have the system requirements listed as like an i5 processor and some other stuff. Like, the game could probably run on lower hardware at just 720p or lower. So in the video I have it playing at 720p just because that's a really common resolution. But yeah, there's some oddities there too with that. But again, since it is a beta, I'm sure that they can fix that before the full release. But just another area that I wanted to kind of note, that there is some strangeness with the current state of the game. But I mean, I think that if Suba Games and the developers stick with it and fix some of the stuff that I talked about in this video and do continue to add new content to the game, I think that there is an audience for M.A.R.S that would be more than happy to keep playing it, because M.A.R.S and ZMR both have a very replayable aspect of them, because they have such like self-contained levels that you can, like, because the levels are so unconnected, it works really well for replayability, especially if you have friends and stuff. And I think that so long as they continue to update the game and add new content and fix any bugs or any weird stuff like what I mentioned, that people will continue to play it. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say here for this little first look at the game. And there will be a first 15. It might be a while before that comes out, because I have 2 other first 15s I need to like do first. But yeah, I'm gonna try to zoom through all those. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in future videos, and bye bye.